Alrighty, welcome back everybody to Cool Sports Chat episode 49. Got one more before Big 5-0, which means we'll be talking the conference championships NFL wise. But today we're going to be talking a little bit about the disappointing wild card weekend that was. I don't know, David, do you feel that way? You think it was a disappointing wild card weekend?
I don't know about disappointing, but I definitely dull. I think maybe one game came down to it being an actual game. Everything else, I felt like it was decided by halftime.
Yeah, the second closest was maybe the Minnesota game last night. Like, had they scored in the third, maybe it could have been a game.
Or
But pretty much,
but that was another one that going into half, it was just like, okay, what are we even doing here still?
Yeah. Luckily, the national or the college playoffs were better. They're more competitive.
Something to watch at least.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I got to watch it. We went down to the Eagles Club downtown and
Terrible
got
name.
to watch it. It's the Fraternal Order of the Eagles, not affiliated by the Eagles.
Thank
Brennan,
God.
did you lean your hat down just to show off the Eagle logo?
No, never.
But yeah, let's I don't know. Should we start with college or NFL this week?
Either one works for me. I guess we could do college, knock that out. There's only 2 games.
Yeah, and it did happen first. So Penn State, Notre Dame, I think went how we kind of thought it would. Close game, but Notre Dame was able to win it. What were your thoughts there?
It was close, but I don't think it was nearly as close as what the score makes it look like. I feel like Notre Dame was pretty much in control most of that game. I never felt like it really got out of hand for them. I think they felt pretty confident in what they were doing, and they managed to. I mean, I think they were ahead. They led most of the game, right? Like, I think they kind of
let them back. Yeah, they let them back towards the end, and at one point I was like, man, they're going to go to overtime and lose this thing, and then they were able to get that full goal at the end to go into the national championship. Which bowl is the national championship this year? Because I know it rotates.
Let's see. We did the Cotton Bowl. Is it the Rose Bowl this year? Rose Bowl, I think, because we already did the Sugar Bowl, right? That was.
Let's see.
It might be Rose this year.
Yeah, that's what I was. Let's see.
But I'm not positive.
Maybe if I just tap national championship. Well, what are your thoughts with Notre Dame as a team making it to the national championship, David?
You know, kind of what I said last time. I don't really have any strong feelings about Notre Dame one way or the other, but I think it's very interesting that we're having a team in the championship that's not affiliated with any kind of conference or anything. They're not Big Ten. They're not, they're not SEC. They're just Notre Dame, and that's it. So I think that's pretty cool to have a school on its own making it all the way to the championship, that they don't have a whole bunch of supporters or a bunch of other schools kind of allied with them. And I think I read that if you win, you get something like $20 million that's usually split up among the other schools in your conference, and they are going to just keep the whole thing for Notre Dame if they win.
That is kind of cool. They get the whole pot.
Yeah,
that's definitely a lot of money. So that obviously goes back to the school then.
I mean, that's almost enough for one student to go 4 years there.
It's enough to just keep buying touchdown Jesus jerseys to wear.
There you go. There you go.
Brennan, did you watch the Penn State Notre Dame game?
I didn't watch any of the college games. I don't have ESPN, so
that's why the Longhorns lost.
Probably.
We didn't have Brendan cheering us on.
Oh, you had me cheering on.
I was updating throughout the game. It was yeah. So, man, the Texas game. We'll get to that one because obviously you both are Texas fans.
Yeah, Brendan, remind me next season before the games. I do have other ways of watching them for free that I can send you.
Okay.
So Texas, would you guys have put in Arch Manning at any point during that game?
I might have put him in for a couple of the like third and short, fourth and short kind of things. Even though I do think it's become a little predictable that if he's in, he's gonna, that it's there for the run. But they have switched it up a couple times with the throws. I don't think I would have sat Ewers and put him in like, okay, it's your game now. But I think I would have utilized him because he didn't get. I don't think he saw the field at all. Like maybe one play.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say one or two, but
yeah. But I mean, especially for something, if you thought you were going into the national championship, you can't do something that's going to shake the confidence of your quarterback. And I think he was already feeling a little, from the past couple games. So the last thing you wanted to do was take it away from him and have the backup do it if you thought he had any chance of all of getting it done. Because otherwise, you might as well then say that Arch has to also play the championship game, because Ewers would have felt horrible if they would have yanked him halftime and then Arch would have came in and won it for him. That's not sending a very good message, I think, to your starting quarterback. And it wasn't so much that he was doing bad. I think the team let us down on a lot of different levels. If it was just him, yes, I would have done it. If it was only him and he was just having a bad night, at some point you do need to be smart and say, we got to give somebody else a shot. But I think the defense, the offensive line, there was a lot of things going wrong in that game that just didn't quite add up for them to win it. But it was still pretty close.
I mean, yeah, even I think even late into the fourth quarter, it was still a one-score game up until that strip sack for the touchdown.
It still could have been anybody's game. So I think it was close enough that it would have been hard to justify taking him out, because if you do take him out and you put in the backup for the rest of the game, you lose then, they're all calling for you. It's your fault for doing that. And they're going to say your starter could have gotten it done. Because to be fair, he had a great season. I mean, he was hurt a couple of games that Arch did well, but besides that, Ewers pretty much had a fantastic season. So, you can't take that away from him if there's any chance. I think it's a tough call. It's one of those things that I don't think coaches ever like having to make that call. I think they made the right one. I think there's too many, it's kind of a gamble, and we can't say for a fact that Arch could have gotten it done. I think if they knew that, then they would have put him in. So, the coach knows those players better than any of us ever will. So I think they probably made the right call. I just wish it would have gone another way.
Yeah, no, I know it's been like the big talking point, at least college-wise, was should they have started Manning? And like you said, it's hard to start someone, especially in the playoffs, and then go back to the other quarterback.
Yeah. If you switch, I feel like you got to stick to it. Unless Ewers was hurt and specifically requested not to play, that is the only way that I would have tried to have somebody else in there. Again, unless the game got very out of hand and it was purely quarterback play. But I think that there was enough other factors going on with the team that you couldn't say Ewers was the problem. He was a problem, but he also had a lot of great plays. So you can't say it was all on him.
Yeah, I was going to say, outside of injury or maybe him throwing like 5 picks in the first or something weird like that.
Yeah.
It's hard, especially it was close. Ohio just played really well. They've been playing extremely well in the playoffs.
They impressed me. I mean, they're my pick to win now. I think they're going to mop the floor with Notre Dame.
I don't know if they'll mop the floor. I do think Ohio's going to win, but I think Notre Dame's going to come in with some moxie and at least keep it within 10.
I hope so. Championship games should always be the best games you see all year.
Well, and, kind of like you said last episode where you said this, past weekend's matchups were going to be close and not like blowouts like we had seen before. They were. So that was good. And I was excited. Hopefully we'll get that from the NFL this upcoming week as well.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the 2 college games were more exciting than the wild card weekend, to be honest.
Yeah, no, wild card weekend was a dud outside of the one game, and we'll get to it. But
I am excited about this coming weekend. Divisional weekend's got some really good games potentially.
Yeah, no, I think we should have some better matchups, maybe outside of one game. And we'll get to it. But I think we'll have the majority pretty close. Let's talk your picks for national championship, David. Who you taking?
Like I just said, I got to go with Ohio. I think they are just firing on all cylinders. They are a great example, I think, of a team that got hot at the right time. I do think earlier in the season, I don't think they would have even gotten past Oregon. I mean, as we saw, they lost to Oregon. I don't think they had it mid-season-ish, but something changed in that locker room. Somebody lit a fire on them, and they are connecting on a level that very few teams, I think, have this season altogether. So I definitely throw it to Buckeyes. But like you mentioned, I do think Notre Dame will make it a good game. I don't think it's going to be just one score. I think at near the end, I think it's going to get away from them a little bit more than that. But I think it'll be competitive, at least the first half, hopefully into the third. But I definitely, if I was betting money on this, it'd be on Ohio.
Brendan, what about you? Who you taking in the national championship?
I want Notre Dame to win. I don't have any reason or anything. I just want them to win.
Just going off pure emotion. I will say if Notre Dame wins, I would be happy. I would be great to see that. I'm not a Notre Dame fan or anything like that, but like David said, it's kind of neat if they were to win it, not being in a conference or anything like that. Plus, they're a big historic college, but they're not one of these big football programs. It's not like they're
Not
there
at all.
every
They're
year.
not traditionally a football school.
Yeah.
They're just kind of, I mean, technically they're one of the oldest football schools, I guess, because they've been around so long. Like they do have a big history, but when you think of power football, you don't think of Notre Dame. So it'd be interesting. And to be fair, I'm not a fan or a hater of either team. I don't really have a dog in this fight now, and I'm not going to be upset over either one of them if they do win. So I'm rooting for a good game, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say Notre Dame has a lot of history. Maybe the most well-known is the Rudy movie, but that's highly fictionalized. So we'll talk about that at some point. Maybe next college season we'll do a deep dive.
Yeah, Rudy on one side, Forrest Gump on the other. Who wins?
Yeah.
Who wins?
Tell us in the comments below in your hypothetical football matchup who's
maybe
going to win.
Bobby Boucher shows up on it. Oh.
Yeah, so like on one side we got Notre Dame, and it's pretty much been big games for them this whole playoff, right? Indiana, maybe not tough matchup wise, but it's a big like interstate kind of rivalry going on there.
Oh yeah.
It was huge prices, and then they play Georgia, and then obviously Penn State, another pretty storied college program, maybe not football wise, but I mean they've been there before. On the other side,
solid victories.
Solid. Yeah, solid, really hard fought. Just like I don't know, they'll make it a competition, but Ohio State, just the way they've been playing, I think they're gonna win it. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be a good game. Maybe by 10, Ohio will win it.
I mean, to get here, Ohio had to basically slaughter two of arguably the best teams in football this year, and they made it look relatively easy.
I mean, they made number 1 Oregon look silly. Like they shouldn't have even been in there. So
yeah,
and then
Texas
to beat
has
Texas,
consistently been a top 5 team all year, top 3 most of the year. And I mean, they didn't make it look easy necessarily, but they didn't look like they were struggling too hard. Like they blew me away. They did great. My hat's off to them. Either team that takes it, neither one of them cakewalked to the championship. I can't say that anybody was gifted it. You know what I mean? They all fought pretty quality opponents to get where they are and had to earn it. So I think congrats to whoever's going to take it. Nobody walked away with it this year.
Yeah, no, and I'm excited. I'm taking Ohio, but I think it'll be close, and I wouldn't be surprised Notre Dame comes out and win. But if I had to be a betting man, I'm taking Ohio just kind of based off of
that's what I feel.
Kind
yeah.
of what I mean, yeah.
I mean, dude, just that Oregon game alone, that shook me, man. I really thought Oregon was the real deal, and then Ohio manhandled them.
Yeah, made Oregon look like I don't know. Yeah, how did we rank this? Obviously, you got to win whatever, but yeah, that was crazy. And then so we'll get to NFL before we get to the wild card. Brendan, we had one coaching hiring so far. Who was it? Not a big surprise, but
Mike Vrabel to New England, which is not where I thought he was going to go. But I also didn't think Jared Mayo was going to get fired after a year. So.
That's the bigger shock for me that they gave him the boot after 1 year. That was like, wow.
Yeah, and I think once Mayo got fired, everyone was kind of like, okay, so Vrabel's going there. So he did kind of his rounds. You're like, maybe one of these other teams are going to pitch him enough that he leaves, but it seemed kind of like a done deal, and he's the first hiring. So we'll see. He talked very highly of the organization when he got inducted into the Ring of Honor while he was still Tennessee head coach, which I heard was kind of the reason for their split.
I'm kind of curious. What kind of contract did he have going into this? Was it a 1-year contract to begin with?
Who, Mayo?
Yeah.
No, I think it was.
I thought there was a couple of years on it, right?
Yeah, and he was the hand-picked successor to Belichick. It was like in his contract. Like they were so worried another team was going to poach him as their head coach. They put it in his contract. He was going to take over for Belichick.
See, that's a little weird. And now I'm curious. Do you think he's going to get another job for this next season? Do you think somebody's going to pick him up, or you think he's going to take a year or so off?
Coach.
Maybe like a coordinator or something.
Yeah, I think he comes back and as a coordinator. I think enough teams will think highly of him. Especially, we got to see where all these other openings land. But I bet somebody takes a flyer on him. I mean, it's not like his. I don't know. He seems like he did really well as like a coordinator. Just he didn't have a good team to lead. I don't even maybe place it as coaching. But
I'm sorry. Did my thing
Patriots were just bad?
Did my thing just go out for a second?
No,
that was weird. Everybody disappeared and it just was like silent.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think if anybody picks him up, they're going to get some good benefit from him. If he's not too expensive, not too long of a contract, you'd be dumb not to throw him in as coordinator or something. I think, if not head coach. I mean, we got to, like you said, we got to see who ends up where. But maybe there's a team that wants to roll the dice on him. I mean, teams like the Bears, stuff like that. Can they really do any worse than what they did?
It can't be worse than Eberflus. So
it's all right. You're gonna get McCarthy now.
I mean, he's better than Eberflus. I don't know. We'll see where McCarthy goes. And speaking of McCarthy, we knew it was coming, right?
Thank God.
We thought
there was some time. Apparently, they talked about maybe him staying.
Well, see, that's what I wanted to talk about because so they denied him being able to do some interviews. One was Chicago. And then they ended up letting him go before the extent. His contract was up today and he was gone yesterday. So I was just like, what happened? Like, they had to have been thinking about bringing him back.
So what I've heard, just, of course, inside sources and all that, they, at the beginning of the year, up to about mid-season, they were probably going to keep him for at least another couple of years. So much so, Bill Belichick was very interested in coming here to be the new Dallas coach. And they made it pretty clear to him that they were going to stick with McCarthy for at least another year or two. And that's why he ended up taking the college job, because he's like, all right, that's the only NFL team I was really interested in, maybe, that I thought it could work out. And they've been friends. He and Jerry Jones apparently have been friends for a long time. So he was willing to go work with him. He knew him and all that. But they were pretty set on McCarthy. So Belichick said, that's cool. I'm going to move on, and got the other job. I guess just the way the season ended, it was enough for Jerry to say, we gotta change it. And from what I understand, though, they still did have contract negotiations happening as early as last week, and they just couldn't quite see eye to eye. So they did let him go. But when they said no to those other interviews, I think that they were still negotiating with McCarthy to possibly stay for another couple of years. So thank God whatever happened to make that fall, because I could not have handled another year of him.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it's the only reason for them to deny a team.
It's gotta be. It's either that or being super petty and just being like, you didn't get us to the playoffs. We ain't letting you go anywhere until that last day.
Right. It seems so weird too, because if you knew from the beginning you were going to get rid of him, just get rid of him, because then you can start getting some of these interviews and requests in with some of these other hot candidates.
Exactly. I mean, it's kind of like how they let Zeke go be on the Chargers. Let him go, or if you know you're not keeping him, get him out of here.
Maybe that's why the Chargers lost. They didn't play Zeke.
That's all they had to do. If they just had him up there the whole time, they would have gotten it.
Oh man, I'm trying to think of any other head coach. I mean, lots of interviews. I think this is the most interviews I've seen.
I do think so. I do think McCarthy is scheduled now to see the Bears this week, right? Like tomorrow or something.
Yeah, Bears and Saints. And there might have been one more. I know. What's his face? From the Vikings, defensive coordinator, is scheduled with the Jaguars.
I do think McCarthy's going to land somewhere, because to be fair, he had some pretty good seasons. I mean, they got to the playoffs every year except this year, and he can blame that on the injuries and everything. I think he makes a strong enough case, especially with his Super Bowl career back in Green Bay. I think he'll make a good enough argument for one of these teams like New Orleans, Chicago, that really needs somebody. And they may end up having a very solid, look how Andy Reid did when he got to Kansas City.
Mhm.
I could almost see something like that happening, that if he's given a true fresh start somewhere with a GM that lets him do whatever he wants, because we all know Jerry is just as much the head coach as whoever's actually the head coach. I'm glad we don't have him, because it wasn't happening, but I wish him well wherever they go. And I would not be surprised to see some really good teams come from under him.
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't be like my first pick, maybe, but in this year's like coaching carousel, there's not a lot of good names. I mean,
he might be really good with a young quarterback, with somebody that doesn't have a lot established yet, somebody that he can kind of mold like he did with Aaron Rodgers and stuff like that. Because Dak was already pretty well into his career by the time McCarthy showed up, so that was only going to go so far. But I mean, rookie basically quarterback. I mean, second year, that might be a good fit together.
well, like you said, it's kind of situational. It's hard when you have a Jerry Jones or like what's his face from the Raiders back in the day, where where they were just kind of running.
Oh, Al Davis.
Yeah, where they were just kind of running it from, and you kind of were just like a puppet man in a way. But we'll see. I do think he'll get a head coaching job. Okay, I'd be shocked if he didn't, especially with
I'll be very
Saints
stressed
and Bears.
unless he himself decided to take like a year off or something.
Because he did that with Green Bay, right? He took the year off and then went to Dallas.
It's the only way I could see him not getting one. The fact that he's taken these interviews, it makes me think that he's probably gonna go somewhere. I could see him being there if he's successful for maybe a good 5-6 years and then probably retire.
Yeah.
Like wherever he goes next will probably be his last coaching gig.
Yeah. No, I could see it. I'm trying to think. I think that's it as far as coaching goes. I mean, Dion was big rumor talking with Dallas, but he's also come out and said it was an honor to talk with Jerry, but he loves Colorado, he loves Boulder, he loves the school. So I don't know.
I think I've heard that whole thing is basically just to keep Dallas in the headlines. It's just Jerry's sensationalism, as always, that there's no real chance that he was going to come over. Because why would you do it?
Well, no, I don't know how well they got along when he was a player for Dallas
exactly.
either.
So why bring him in? And no, he's done a lot of good for the Colorado school. Like they've done a lot better, but he hasn't done anything impressive enough that I'd be like, NFL now, let's go. I don't see it as it would be like stunt casting in a movie,
Well, I think that's why he'll stay at CU, mainly to show he can do it without his sons and Travis Hunter. Because he's been able to recruit some really good quarterbacks, like future quarterback prospects. He's getting some good coaches on the staff, so I would be kind of shocked for him to leave CU. They're paying him really well. So.
He's making a lot of money, and there's no way that it's as stressful as it would be to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, it's one of the big market NFL jobs. Yeah. I think the only way you could get worse as far as being a head coach is one of the New York teams.
Anybody that steps into there's a chance for huge success and fame and everything if you do well, but you got the odds stacked against you. You got a huge fan base that's ready to turn on you on a dime. You're coming into some really bad contract decisions with the players that they've given for how long. You've got to deal with Jerry Jones. You've got every eye on you because no matter how bad they are, they're the Dallas Cowboys, and everybody knows that gets headlines. So, I pray for whoever steps into it that they're ready for it because it is pressure. If I don't blame Sanders for staying at college, making his money, and being a king in Colorado, and staying the hell away from it.
Yeah, and I think he wants to win a college, at least bowl, at least something.
Because if he leaves now, like you said, it looks like he was only there for his sons.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, my boys are going by. That's dumb.
One of the rumors I saw, and I thought it was ridiculous, was he goes to Dallas, trades the first overall pick, or trades Dak Prescott to
get his son.
Titans for the first pick, and then draft his son.
Yeah, never gonna happen.
I just don't think. Yeah, I don't think that would happen. I mean, Dak's better than a lot of situations, but I don't think a team's trading number one pick for him. And
I mean, I guess it would matter what the quarterback class is like, but I wouldn't, especially because if you trade for Dak, you got to take that whole contract. It'd be one thing if it was like maybe a 2-year or something. Like, it's big bucks, long time commitment, and you're getting rid of your first pick number. Like, come on. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, and right now, the only team I could really maybe seeing Dion leaving for is maybe like the Raiders or had the Giants opened up, just because then he could go coach Shooter in college or in the NFL too, because those are the only teams. I mean, I think Tennessee will take Ward right now. Seems like where everyone's leading. I don't know why. Personally, not my number one quarterback. I haven't watched a lot of his film either, but seems like he's kind of become the consensus number one.
There's a new quarterback that I saw that apparently people had above both of them. I don't remember who it was though.
Well, I know Jackson Dart has been rising because he had a pretty good bowl game. Ewers, I think, was number 5. I'm trying to think who was 4.
I wonder what he is.
Jalen Milrow or whatever. I bet he can't be lower than a 5. It's not a strong quarterback class.
It's really not. I think Ewers is still going to go top 10.
I don't know. We'll do, at some point we'll do our mock draft and we'll see where we put him team wise. I was looking at cap space too. The Saints, speaking of the Saints, have the worst cap space. They are negative 71 million in the hole. Still. Well, this is what I think.
The last 2 or 3 years they've been in cap hell.
Yeah, and that's because of how Sean Payton ran the Saints, and this is how he's going to run the Broncos. And at some point, it's going to happen to them too.
Unless he leaves the Broncos to come coach the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, because he wanted the Dallas job.
He wanted it so bad, and he and Jimmy do have a history together. Or not Jimmy, sorry, Jerry.
I knew he. I mean, who knows, Jimmy?
You know what? He wouldn't do it now because he's making way too much money doing his show and living easy life. But Jimmy would have been the best GM for the Dallas Cowboys. If Jerry, like a decade ago, would have gotten his head out of his ass and been like, all right, we're going to win. If you would have hired him on as GM, I think they would have gone back to being very successful.
Well, okay. So obviously they went on to win after they got rid of him. But how many more do you think would they have won? Yeah, but how many more do you think they would have won with him?
Honestly, probably 2 or 3.
Okay.
If not winning them, would have at least been there. You know what I mean? It would have been that very consistent threat, but Jerry got too into it.
Too ego, yeah, because it became who actually built the Cowboys. Yeah, that's an at some point we got to start doing some deep dives on like some histories of the NFL because there's some like crazy history.
Same thing about like, isn't that the same thing or same question people asked about like the Buccaneers or the 49ers? Like, I think Harbaugh's 49ers and...
Well, yeah, that was a dumb move. I don't know why they got rid of Harbaugh.
Bucks, but it was the Buccaneers team that won the Super Bowl or something, or the Raiders that went to the Super Bowl. I don't remember.
Well, it was the Broncos who went... The Broncos went with John Fox's team, but they gave it to Kubiak the year they went to the Super Bowl. But it was his team.
The Bucks was too. It was like Tony Dungy's team, but they fired him or whatever.
Oh,
so then...
no, that was the Raiders. They fired Gruden, and Gruden went to Tampa Bay and then went and beat his old team in the Super Bowl. Yeah, and that's why he won. Because they didn't change the plays at all. It was all his offense, so he knew what they were running.
That's so stupid. So stupid.
Yeah. He just told his defense, and that's why his defense had like 3-4 interceptions, couple returned for touchdown. That was just such a weird matchup. Let's see. The next closest team with a lot of dead cap or negative cap is the Browns with negative 29. So that just shows you the Saints not very. They just kept pushing out and pushing out and pushing out, and eventually you have to pay it, and they're finding that out. So I don't know. It'd be a weird one for McCarthy to go to, and I think it kind of makes sense, but it'd have to be kind of his last option, I think.
Or they'd have to be offering a lot of money.
Yeah, which doesn't go against the cap, so they could. Whatever
They
their
could,
owners.
but I don't know if he's got the resume of what they want there.
Right.
I don't know.
We'll see.
Nothing would surprise me after this year of the NFL. It's been such a weird season.
Yeah, it's been a weird year, and like I said, it's a weird coaching carousel. You don't have kind of that big name. Vrabel was maybe the biggest, but he even wasn't one that felt like a must hire to me.
There's usually one or two that you're like, oh man, whoever gets that's going to be lucky. Like everybody's going to go for him, and everybody requests to interview and everything. But this year, it's just like, so who's left? Who? I guess
some of the people that have gotten interviews. You're like, I mean, good for them. Like the Bears, I know interviewed Mike Kafka, and I'm like, why? Okay, I guess you're being very thorough, but
it's weird that McCarthy is probably a top 3 name for this year coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Out of who else is out there? It's
weird. Him and Vrabel.
Yeah,
those are the big names. Vrabel, him, and then Ben Johnson. Yeah,
and it's just okay, and I guess Mayo's kind of hot out there now, but not really head coach.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of NFL, let's get to the wild card weekend, which started in Houston. Brendan, the Texans won quite handily. The defense played probably the best game I've seen of the Texans since they played the Bears when they just murdered. But the Chargers, too, the offense just looked off. Herbert kept throwing interceptions. One was Disley had it, and then it bounced off his hands into the interception. And I think that was a pick 6. And I was like, wow, that's really poor timing. But yeah, Texans, much like they did last year, come in and just get the job done wild card weekend. David, what were your thoughts with that game?
I was honestly surprised. I thought that the Chargers were going to have it. I do think if you look at just the talent levels, Houston probably does have a more talented team, but they really fell apart about halfway through the season, and they just started dropping games that they should not have dropped. I don't know what was going on there. I don't know what their issue has been, but I did not expect them to get it together to play this game. Even at home, I considered them kind of the underdog going into this. And now after the way they played, I think they got a fair shot against Kansas City. If they can play like they did the second half of that game, like you said, defense carried them big time. There was some really great moves. Special teams did some great jobs. So if they can keep it together, because again, I think Kansas City just happens to get lucky. They've got a lot of those last minute wins and things like that. Houston could do it. I think it would shock the world. I think if Houston beat them here and knocked them out, but they've had off for basically a month now. So who knows, maybe they'll be a little rusty going into it, and Houston will be fired up from this last win that they shouldn't have gotten, and they'll take it home. But it was exciting for that last quarter, I would say. Good game. Good job, Houston. They're the only Texas team in any kind of playoffs right now, so I guess I want them to win.
Brandon, what were your thoughts with that wild card matchup?
I did think that the Chargers were going to have the upper hand and they were going to win. I don't know if as easily as a lot of people were saying or that I saw, but just based on how things have gone recently, I did have a little more faith in the Chargers. So that was very interesting to see kind of their fall. I don't think the Texans really have a chance this week, and that's more because the Chiefs never lost a game with the refs that are reffing them. So they like to call.
Well, plus, Andy Reid is really good after a bye week. He is historically good after a bye week. So
right, but so Yeah, I thought it was a good game. Continue proving people wrong. That you're able to, take your Saturday 3:30 times, and we'll probably see him next wild card weekend at 3:30.
I mean, even if they lose this next game, as long as they don't get like embarrassed, I don't think they have anything to be ashamed of this season.
Oh no,
I think they outperformed.
Yeah, I mean, you look at last year, they won. I think it was pretty close, and then they got blown out by the Ravens, and I don't think that's going to happen this time.
No, if they lose, I think it won't be more than 7 to 10 points.
Yeah, I was thinking like 10-ish points.
Yeah.
Like a spoiler for my pick there. But yeah, defense-wise, I mean, obviously, I think all of us picked the Chargers last week, right? I know I picked the Chargers to win. Their receiving core definitely needs an upgrade. Was their weak spot going into the season, and it definitely showed. Herbert, I don't know if it was the line. I don't know if he just started trying to play hero ball and making some mistakes. And even that defense, which looked so good in the first, just kind of like fell apart. And Houston's defense looked really good. Like I said, probably the best game I've seen defensively from them since they murdered Caleb for just like 60 minutes. But yeah, no, I was really impressed by their defense. CJ started to look better. He started to make some of his throws we saw from him last year. And we'll see what they do this year. This week. I would say even if they do lose, just like hats off, because no one really gave them any props going into this week. They kind of wrote them off because of that slump they had mid-season. So good off to them. Let's see, Baltimore, Pittsburgh. David, this one really didn't feel like a game at all, really.
After
couple plays.
It was kind of exactly what I expected it to be. Baltimore is showing back up. They're another team that they started to kind of fall apart there near the end of the season, but then they got it back together and they got hot at the right time. They're starting to play like the Ravens we all know and love. And I could see them almost going all the way if they keep it up. They're doing really well. They're firing on all cylinders, and they made the Steelers look like a team that should not have been in the playoffs.
Yeah, I saw something that said like every 12 years the Ravens win the Super Bowl. So that, I mean, right on schedule.
Yeah, it was not only that. There was like a couple of other stats that like went with it that have always happened like in that. So, hey, them winning, I would not be upset about. That's a Super Bowl I can get behind.
Yeah, and I will say at the beginning, it was kind of the offensive. They weren't doing anything. I think I described it as they were just making cameos on the field because they would go like 5-6 yards and they were off. But in that second half, like Russ was making some decent passes, like some really nice like deep passes, and I was like, okay,
you can't blame Russ for what happened out there. I think he did as well as he could. I'd definitely bring him back as the starter for the next year, and I think Steelers will probably build on this and be a pretty good team next year, I think.
Yeah, because I know right now the leading destination to get Mr. Aaron Rodgers is Pittsburgh. And I think I would take Russ over Rodgers. Rodgers, maybe I don't know. He didn't have like a terrible year. It was pretty comparable to Josh Allen, I think, as far as yards and everything. But there's a lot of extra stuff you're bringing on when you bring in Rodgers. And
I mean, Steelers are the only football team in Pennsylvania, so I think they need to do their state proud. Right, Brendan?
Yeah, who's in the playoffs? Who's sitting in Cancun?
I mean, if you ask me between the two, I'd rather be in Cancun, to be honest. that doesn't sound.
I don't know. I've been to Philadelphia. I like Philadelphia.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes I feel like being surrounded by garbage people too, but
that's why you live in
pick Cancun.
Hey, they did. Ouch. Who did? Oh no. Philly fans this week have been getting roasted online for their treatment to the Packer fans.
Oh yeah. Man, I saw some bad they're horrible people.
Yeah, and I think it was
only if you're wearing the opposing team's gear.
But the lady wasn't even doing anything, and the Eagles were winning, and this dude was just berating.
She was wearing Packers gear.
That's
I know, but What
They
he
need to
said to her,
calm
I was
down.
like, yeah, I
I
was
just-
like, there's no reason.
Dude's probably gonna
He-
get fired now, from what I understand. Like his work even put out like a notice
Yeah,
about being
it
upset
was
about it,
that
and they're
bad.
investigating and like,
Ew.
oof.
Yeah, no, it was that bad. And somebody was like, I mean, they did boo Santa Claus. So, I mean,
We threw snowballs at Santa Claus.
I mean,
yeah,
they used to throw snowballs with batteries inside them at opposing players. So they've always been a dirty team. That's just what that city is.
uh,
We
There's
like
a reason. There's a reason Kamala Harris had her big final rally in Philly. That's her people, Brendan. That's your side now. Congratulations.
no.
No.
anyway, back to the other Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania team, Pittsburgh. I really do feel like it was A, defense, and B, they just didn't feel like they had heart. A lot of
No.
it. Baltimore clearly looked like the superior team, and this is a Pittsburgh team that beat them earlier in the year. You know, it's not like they didn't beat them this year and just got
You know,
smoked.
I don't think the Steelers expected to make the playoffs this year.
No, I don't think so either. And it just kind of feels like Tomlin's thing. Like last couple of years, he gets to the playoffs and just gets smoked.
That's another coach that I'm waiting to hear what's going to happen. I don't know if he's sticking around or not. I wouldn't be surprised either way at this point.
Do you think Jerry would trade?
I think that would be probably the biggest name out there if he left the Steelers. If he was
Yeah.
available, I could see a lot of teams being like, that's the one to go for. He might be a good fit here. I don't know. That is kind of his style of football, going from one storied franchise to another. I'd rather have him than a lot of choices that are out there right now.
Well, we'll get to another one that apparently is getting trade calls to their team once we get to Monday night's game, which is just crazy to me. But yeah, Baltimore's offense looked really good. At Derrick Henry, I think helps a lot. The receivers looked better than they have in previous playoffs. Obviously, a little bit more time with Lamar, but I was pretty impressed. I'm excited to see this week's matchup against Buffalo. Disappointed it's not the conference championship because I'd be much more excited to see both either of those teams go.
It's
Brendan,
probably going to be like that. That might be a better game than the Super Bowl ends up being.
Oh yeah, it
Like,
definitely could be.
I like that. I can't tell you who I think is going to win that because I honestly don't know.
And I
They
feel
both,
so
they
torn
both,
too.
they both can win.
Yeah,
I mean, if they both show up at peak, I have no idea who takes it.
yeah, it could be a shootout. Brendan, what were your thoughts with the Pittsburgh game?
Snooze fest. I think it was over at halftime.
Yeah.
That's
That
being
was-
generous.
That was
Well, and when Pittsburgh finally started to get some life, we're like, okay, they're only down by 21, and they scored again, and you're like, all right, well, it's over. They just can't stop the Baltimore Ravens. The offense finally got some life, made some really nice plays. You're like, oh, okay, maybe they'll come back, make it a little bit of a game. Nope. Nope.
Again, I just cannot fathom that Derrick Henry wanted to come to the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry didn't even want to interview. Like, no, we don't need that.
well,
What?
the $8 million is too
What?
much. We can't afford that.
And yet, how much did we just give Dak Prescott?
More than he bought the Cowboys
Don't-
for originally.
Like, don't you even don't tell me that you couldn't carve out 10 million of that for arguably one of the best running backs in the league.
Well, that's like
Well,
the Giants going, we're not going to pay our $40 million quarterback to hand off to a $12 million running back. And Philly goes, okay, we'll give our $50
Yeah,
million.
they're like, we'll do it. Yeah, come on. We're not going to let him set a record, but come on.
Yeah, and we'll get to Barkley because there were some interesting drives with him not being on the field, and I was like, did he get hurt? And then he was just on the sidelines, like standing there. I was like,
He's just chilling. He was just.
yeah. I was like,
To be
Sirianni,
fair,
it's
they didn't
playoffs,
need
play
him.
him.
I mean, they got it done.
Yeah, no, that was another one. Let's see, what's the next one? Denver Buffalo. So Denver fans, we don't have any IC today. No appearance by Bobby. But
Yeah,
Bronco fans.
Where is everybody tonight?
I don't know. Grayson might be stuck at work still. He did text me he was going to try to make it, but
I thought God, what's his name? I thought
Nolan.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, no.
He doesn't even have to load. I
Nolan
see the
is
champ.
here.
I already know who's here.
Champ's here. One thing I gotta say, boys. Horns down.
And then he leaves. He's just done.
Hey, that's all I gotta say. Bye, guys.
Uh,
He's just like, later.
apparently he did. He just he went away. So maybe he'll come back on. I don't know.
I think he
he'll
will.
come back on. He's just off.
Man,
I don't see him at all.
What a power move though if he didn't come back.
Oh no, okay. He is actually back.
Wait, he's not the champ anymore. This is Grayson.
Look, I just had to be sure I keep myself a little bit humble. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, don't do what my dad did and retitled his team to the champion bats, because then he was winless
That's the
that
curse,
entire next year. Yeah. I was like, yeah, don't do that. Grayson, what did you think of the college playoffs?
Went exactly as I thought it would go. But I thought they were good games. I think for what had happened, the outcomes were honestly pretty predictable. But I think the one that I was most surprised by was Texas losing to Ohio State. I thought they honestly were going to be a little bit more dominant in the game, but after that first half, I'm like, I don't see this happening.
Yeah, they didn't have any heart.
Yeah, I think what we said last week is pretty accurate. I think they got caught off on the back foot and they just could not get back to stable before hitting this big game. So,
Well, speaking of big games, who are you taking for national championship, Grayson?
I think Ohio State's going to pull it out. Because I think even though Notre Dame's making a solid run of it, they don't got what it takes to beat Ohio State.
No, because I think Texas and Oregon both would beat Notre Dame.
Absolutely. Even if they played the way they played against Ohio State, they could smoke Notre Dame.
Yeah. So I don't think. I think it'll be a good game up until about end of the third, beginning of fourth, and I think Ohio's going to pull away.
Same.
So, Grayson, we've only gotten through two of the games, wild card weekend. We were talking about coaches for a while. So, what were your thoughts with the Saturday games as far as Texans killing the Chargers and the Ravens just playing keep away from the Steelers, pretty much?
I mean, it's nice to see Mike Tomlin retiring in style. He walked out of the field, got one touchdown, and he's like, "Hey, I met my contract standard. I got to the playoffs. Let's go on vacation, boys." No, it's the NFC, or the AFC North is just in shambles right now, and I think a lot of just powerhouses are kind of just stagnant because for some reason the two Ohio teams just cannot get their heads out of their cheeks and actually make a good team. So it's always going to be between Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and it's just not going to be any different for a long time, unfortunately. But I can't say I was surprised by what happened in the Texans Chargers game. It was pretty obvious that even though the Chargers had a spot, they were lucky to be there. So, but yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on that.
Do you have any thoughts on Russell Wilson looking better than the Steelers defense?
Hey, with as many years of experience of just being mediocre as Russell Wilson has, he showed up. He showed up in force. Yeah, I can't really say I was surprised by anything. It was just season-ending football where everybody wants to go home, and Mike Tomlin knows that there's no way his team's going to go all the way, so might as well just ride the one playoff game to renegotiate a contract with another team if he wants to leave Pittsburgh and sail off into vacation until March.
Do you think he leaves this year?
I don't think he's going to leave. I think Pittsburgh's going to cut him loose because they're tired of going, winning season and then getting cut in the first or losing in the first round. So you
think he's done there, but not by his own will?
I think either that or they'll let him go through like the what I realistically see happening is probably him going into the postseason and then starting in with depending on how the offseason goes, I think the Steelers might try to come to an amicable end with Mike Tomlin and let him go seek greener pastures, so to speak.
Yeah, because I think they are now 6 straight playoff losses. Just 1 and out.
Hey,
I could see him coming to the Cowboys. I don't see it being out of the realm of possibility.
I think he'd mesh well with Jerry Jones, where he's able to keep ownership like that happy while also making a good team.
Yeah, I think it could be a good fit and a good place for him to ride out 5-6 years and retire.
100%.
Yeah, I'll say I saw a ranking of possibilities for coaches of Dallas, and I think number 2 was Tomlin. Number 1 was Belichick, and I was like, I don't know if he leaves college, but apparently the NCAA is afraid. They think he's a flight risk, and I'm like,
I think they're giving him way too much. They basically bowed down to that man and gave him whatever he wanted. I think if that deal wouldn't be in place, I think he would easily take the Cowboys, but I think now that he's got that sweet, sweet college money there and basically freedom to do anything he wants. It's so plush. You'd be dumb not to take it.
Well, here's a possibility. Maybe he does go to Dallas, but maybe next year. Maybe Dallas does kind of like a Jared Mayo. They keep him for a year. Belichick does a year in the college. He comes up next year. Do you think that's a possibility?
I don't think so. I think Jerry is old enough that he wants to win now.
Yeah, I think he wants one more Super Bowl win before he starts
before he hands it off.
Creeping in a little bit closer to him.
Yeah, he wants to go out on a high note and say, I did that. So if he can, he'll get a coach that can get the job done now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I think in all honesty, this offseason is going to be a huge shakeup for a lot of teams that seem to be just stable and like a franchise essentially.
Well, speaking of a franchise, we did note we don't have any other fans apparently on tonight, but they were chanting. They wanted Buffalo. They got Buffalo.
And Buffalo, it was more than they could handle.
Yeah,
a whole serving of Buffalo.
I not only did Von Miller's on Buffalo, but Josh Allen. That's always been the narrative. Why didn't Denver take Josh Allen? He was there. He was close by. They could have gotten. Yeah, obviously they're dumb, but
because they got Josh Allen has guardian angels that saved him from the Denver team and the Denver fans.
Oh yeah, because
to be fair, I don't think he'd be as successful if he would have ended up in Denver.
100%. I think they would have done the same thing that they're about to do to Bo Nix, because Bo Nix is a quality quarterback. They're going to play him for 2 years, and because Sean Payton, the receiver core, and the entire team sucks, he's going to be gone again in like a year or two.
Because they're going to be like, oh, it's Bo Nix's fault. He's mediocre.
Exactly.
He's mid, and then trade him to someone else, and then he's going to get a Super Bowl in a year or two with another team.
100%.
Well, yeah, it doesn't take very long for Denver fans to turn on a quarterback. Yeah, we've seen it for like the last, I don't even know how long. Even when Manning was there, they turned on him. But I remember Russ, they got so mad because Seahawks booed him when he came on the field that first game with Denver. And then the very next game at home, they booed him within the first 4 plays. And I was like, oh, okay. I forgot that was okay when you do it.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything more fickle than a Denver fan. I don't even think the wind changes as much direction as the Broncos fans do.
I mean, have you met Cowboy fans?
Yeah, fair.
I get we're a little more bandwagon though than fickle, so that's fine.
Yeah, I'll say you take the rising star, but at least you're loyal to your team. Where it's like the second it's a loss, it's just get them out of here. And you're like with Denver fans, and you're like, dude, it was one bad play. Take it easy. It's game 3 of the season. Relax.
Yeah, no, here in Colorado, they already want to get rid of Sean Payton. I'm not a big fan of Sean Payton, but I don't think he was an issue.
I think the way he's running the team is kind of putting them in a position to get more draft picks, because him running just a run defense or a run offense with the quarterback he has, it's not the best choice that you could possibly make. And I think he's doing that on purpose to kind of get people that don't want to be there out and then try to restart and rebuild that core. Or he knows that his core is just garbage and that he's not going to rely on more than just what Bo Nix can kind of make happen out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, they definitely need a running back. I know A lot of people are like saying Javante's one of the big free agents. I'm like, he hasn't done anything for Denver. So I don't think that's a huge loss there. They just need a running back. I don't know who they get. But Buffalo looked really good. I was happy to see Josh Allen doing good. The run game looked pretty solid. Denver did kind of keep it close in the first half. Once they doinked that field goal, it kind of changed everything. Which will come back. There's another doink the next or this same day. But David, what were your thoughts with Buffalo, Denver?
I already knew Denver was going to win. I mean, that Broncos were going the Bills were going to win. I didn't expect Denver to go down so badly, though. I thought they'd make it a little more of a game, but it was over by halftime. It was,
Yeah, and they honestly could have like ran it up another touchdown, even with Trubisky in there. They only
they
had 8 yards to go.
definitely eased off. They were like, all right, we got this. Let's just start getting ready for next week, because it was embarrassing. Broncos looked like a team again that should not have been in the playoffs.
Yeah, again, you're like, how would a Cincinnati have fared?
Not nearly as good. It probably would have been about the same.
Yeah, I don't think anybody stands much of a chance against the Bills this year, except potentially like the Ravens.
Yeah,
Like
who else on
that's
that?
going to be a good game, and that's about it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, look at the AFC as a whole. What other teams were like, you're sitting there saying, man, they're going to have a chance. It's hardly anybody. It feels very lackluster this year.
Yeah, like, I think there's 3 teams that could.
I think, Kansas City, the Bills, the Ravens. Is there any other team even worth talking about really in the AFC right now?
Yeah.
I mean, they got potential. A couple years from now, sure, somebody else can be in that mix. Like the Bengals, sure, maybe. They might be able to get over that hump finally. But right now, there's only 3 elite teams, in my opinion, from the AFC.
Yeah, they can get Joe Burrow off the frosted tip. Look, they'll probably finally be on a right track up.
Yeah, once he finishes puberty.
Yeah, once he gets off the Dennis Rodman, just repeat circuit, then we might be looking at a better Bengals team here.
I mean, if they can get some defensive help too, that would help, because I think they had one of the most points scored this year. Obviously, Burrow threw for the most yards. Chase had the triple crown for receiving, and they didn't even make the playoffs. So you're like, okay, so defense might be an issue. Brendan, what were your thoughts with Buffalo, Denver?
Did you watch it?
I liked the first half. I don't know. Obviously Buffalo's the better team, so I knew it was going to be kind of a runway for Buffalo. It kind of surprised me on how long Denver stuck around. So yeah.
Grace, what about you? Any thoughts on them?
Other than the Cleveland Brown part of my fandom soul was very soothed seeing the Broncos just get emulsified in the playoffs. Felt real good. But honestly, I was surprised. As David said too, I kind of feel the same way. As I thought Denver would have put up a couple more points on the board. At least made it interesting. But it was a massacre, and the Buffaloes gored them. The Bills gored them bad. So it's the Broncos. I honestly do not think they stood a chance going up against the Bills, and they kind of proved that. So I just did not think it would be as bad.
Like if I was on the Broncos playing, I'd be like, "Oh, that's what a real football team looks like." Okay,
that's what non-toxic ownership does. That's crazy.
So we're supposed to be like that. Gotcha.
We're supposed to want to win. This is news to me.
Well, speaking of one fan base that is known to turn against their quarterbacks, jumping to another that's not usually known, but has been posting everywhere that Mr. Jordan Love is overrated. The Packers really just got outclassed. David said it earlier. They didn't even need Barkley. They didn't play up to their standard of like where we've seen Philly play. They kind of played sloppy, and even then, it wasn't very close of a game.
I think honestly they just kind of I think it was like a Texas situation, or not really a Texas situation. It was just Green Bay, same kind of thing. They kind of lucked their way into the playoffs, and they got taken out quickly like they should.
Yeah, I will say the offense is struggling. And granted, 3 of the receivers got hurt during the game. So, I mean, that probably played into it. But I don't know.
David, that's how an NFC East number 2 seed takes care of a number 7 seed at home.
You know what? I don't know, though, because I don't think the Eagles are going to win their next game. Not if the way they just played is any indication of it.
Yeah, they definitely need to play better.
And I know you're talking about last year when I agree. Dallas should have beaten the snot out of Green Bay last year. I think that was awful. But again, I blame McCarthy for a lot of that, and thank God he's gone. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, Green Bay
I kind of wondered
what?
if the AJ Brown like situation was more because he was hurt all week, so they were trying to not play him as much, or I don't know. I
just think the way that the sloppy play and then the injuries that they got, that may end up being the real story of that game, because that may be key stuff that takes them down in this next round.
Yeah, because Dean is out now for the year.
Yeah.
Who else got hurt? Slay got hurt, right?
I thought Slay came back though.
Did he come back? There was like 2 or 3 pretty big injuries. 2 didn't come back. I'm trying to think who else got hurt. It was one of their safeties or corners. I can't remember now. But yeah, the AJ Brown thing was interesting because I really only saw like 2 or 3 plays at him. One was he was open and it went over his head by quite a bit. But I will say he has helped in book sales apparently, because he was reading a book on the sidelines, and apparently that book has now sold dozens and dozens and dozens of copies.
And that book was called The Midnight Library. We're reading it ourselves. Tune in to our first book club in February.
Could you imagine if it was? We'll just be like, hey, our second book club, we're gonna.
Who's to say it wasn't?
Right.
Who's to say it wasn't?
Maybe it was. And Love looked like just there wasn't a lot of options for Love to throw around. They're already missing one of their top receivers, and 3 more got hurt. Their offensive line, pretty much their entire offensive line got hurt. It almost was like, all right, just end it for mercy's sake. It wasn't like a blow, but you just were like, all right, their whole team's getting hurt, just end it. They're not coming back.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that Love's not that great. He's kind of mid-tier.
I don't think he's great. I don't think he's terrible.
No, he's okay. He's there. I'd rank him like 15 or 16 out of the league.
Yeah, it's probably fair.
Love is just sorry, you can go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's fair.
Yeah, and I realized I was pretty much about to say the same thing, so never mind. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean he's not terrible, but I wouldn't bend over backwards to get him on my team.
Watch next year. Now he's just going to go off.
I mean, he might. I mean, hey, good for him if he does. But I think that in Green Bay, they're just so used to having elite quarterbacks for so long that now that they have a regular quarterback, it's such a culture shock for them. They've got some high expectations, and I don't think he's going to be able to ever hit them.
Well, yeah, look at what Favre and Rodgers combined were able to do.
Exactly.
2 Super Bowls. That was it. And they were elite.
And they were way better. Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, Favre was one of those quarterbacks where you watch and you're like, how did he do that? Like, he'd be falling down and throw like 30 yards downfield accurate, and you're like, wow, that was crazy.
Same with Aaron Rodgers. He was one of those guys that he could be behind in the last 20 seconds of the game, and you still didn't want him to have the ball. If you were
so many
him,
Hail Marys.
because you knew.
So many.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, for the Packers, I think Love is serviceable enough to take them to their next draft pick, which I think, depending on how they draft in this next upcoming class, could be a little bit of a change-up for them. Get them back to the 2000s to the 2010s golden years for them.
Do you think they go receiver in the first round? I know that's been a big thing, not going receiver.
I think they might, because of the quality of receiver in the class this year, but I don't know. I'm always going to say what teams do because it's 90% of the time they're going to look for a quarterback that they don't need and waste a draft pick on him.
Yeah, no, we've heard that before with Green Bay. But yeah, Philadelphia won. Brennan, you're happy about that, right?
Of course.
Brennan's
There
just like,
was
no.
definitely times during that game where I thought they were lucky to get out of that game with a win. My faith in Jake Elliott has gone down this year with almost each game. So I hope our games never come down to a field goal.
Well, what are your thoughts with Sirianni? Like his coaching, how he's been the last couple of years?
I don't know, because I don't know who's truly coaching anything. If it's our coordinators or if it's him.
Or Roseman upstairs.
I feel like we should be doing better, especially with our defensive coordinator. Our defense is doing fine, but I thought Kellen Moore was supposed to be a great offensive coordinator, and yet we're having offensive struggles. So I don't know if it's because his play calling or if Sirianni's stepping over and play calling, or maybe it's Jalen Hurts.
Or a combination, just all of them.
Exactly. I mean, I've seen a lot of things recently of, how disliked Jalen Hurts actually is. So, I mean, he wasn't my favorite coming out of college, but that was more because he went to Oklahoma than anything.
Brendan was like, boo. All right, so let's talk about the one actual game of Wild Card Weekend. David, you want to tell us about the good game of the week?
I thought we talked about it with the Bills, right? It was very competitive, very
We talked about the good games, the Texas, Ohio, and Penn State.
I mean, yeah, college outclassed the NFL this week.
Which game did you want to talk about, Keegan?
Washington, Tampa Bay.
It was a good game. It was definitely. I mean, it literally came down to a last-second field goal. I really like that nobody got away with it. It was by halftime you couldn't say who was going to win. They did a really good job, both teams. It's crazy the way that it turned out. Again, I mean, he literally hit that upright, and it just happened to go. It bounced the right way. It was one of those doink field goals for the win. So that was awesome. I don't know if the Commanders can keep going, but it's a hell of a story if they do.
Yeah, I will say Quinn kind of lucked out going for it on fourth there, not getting it, but immediately getting the ball back. So that really
they did a couple of those that
Yeah.
didn't work out, and then they're lucky that the turnover situation and stuff kind of kept them in it so that they didn't fall behind like they could have.
Yeah, and I get it. It's playoff football. You want to play aggressive, set a tone. But at some points, you got to be like, all right, just take the points. We're still in it. It's a close game, It's kind of how I felt. We'll get to it on the Monday night game. Brendan, what were your thoughts with this close game?
I hate to see NFC East rival move on, but I'm happy the Bucs are not moving on.
You just don't like the Buccaneers?
Well, besides the Lions, I thought they were the Eagles' biggest threat. With them beating us last year, and
I think the Eagles' biggest threat is themselves.
Sirianni.
Why can you hate?
The fans make it easy.
Hate, but then it's like you see, like he's won more games in the first 4 years than almost any coach. He's done.
Could you imagine if he gets fired? Like they lose this game, he gets fired.
I could
coach the Cowboys.
No, I cannot see that one. I can see Cullen more and more
How,
going.
how funny would that be?
I can
David,
see
do you
Cullen
even
more
want him?
go
Let's be real.
Dallas.
No, I don't want him at all. But it'd be funny.
It would be funny.
I mean, if we were gonna do like you guys said and have like a throwaway coach for a year, grab him for the lulls, you know?
Negotiate the contract all the way up. Take out all your cap. Yeah.
Hey, if he'll argue with Philadelphia fans because he's done it already as the Philadelphia coach. So
They might literally
have
murder
to.
him when they have to go play there. I would be, if I was him, I'd be concerned going back there.
They're gonna send him out there with like a whole Secret Service team out there.
just a bubble.
He comes out in that special Pope mobile the Pope uses in parades with like the bulletproof around him, just wheels out.
There's a second shot. Second shot.
What were we talking about? Tampa Bay. Yeah. So Grayson Baker didn't make it.
Breaks my heart.
He did run over Bobby Wagner though. He had some good moments.
Dude,
he had some heart. He had heart. Yeah,
this is why I love Baker. He's an entertaining quarterback to watch. When he wants to win, he's electric on the field. If you can't tell, my man crush definitely is Baker Mayfield from how I've talked about him on this podcast. But hey, I'm not afraid to admit it. Anyway, it was a heartbreaker. The game was really well fought. I think I saw a meme today that was just talking about the kicker just stressing about making the field goal. And
like
doing that got me pretty good today. But it was not what I thought was going to happen. But hey, Washington pulled it out. It came down to pure chance. It's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. So there's always next season. But
and in Baker's defense, I can't say the game was lost because of him.
Absolutely.
No. We talked about Jordan Love being mid-tier. Baker's definitely above that. Baker is top tier on a mid-tier team.
Yeah. I think with what Tom Brady did with the core, it kind of made him a little lackluster, a little cozy, and now they kind of have to start putting some real weapons at Baker's disposal because while he is a really good quarterback, he is not what Tom Brady was when he was in the league. So,
and nobody is. As much as I don't like Tom Brady, just nobody's the same.
I mean, he proved it was not Belichick; it was Brady that held that team together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it was a good game to watch. It was, like we've said, the only real competitive one. There was multiple times where we're like, even with turnovers, no one was out of it. They turn over on fourth down. It was still within the score. We'll see. It doesn't feel like the moves you can make on a Detroit going into next week, just being super aggressive like that, because Detroit will capitalize. They have a really good offense. But yeah, kudos to Washington. They haven't won a playoff game, I think, since 2005 or 6 it was. So good on them to finally have a competent team. I know everyone was kind of worried because it was, Jane was just kind of getting beat up the whole time, and people are worried it was going to be a repeat of RG3. I mean, he's bleeding from the face and stuff. But he made the plays he's supposed to make. He's still a rookie, but he's looking better than CJ looked last year, so good on him as well. And that brings us to Monday night. I don't know. I don't know if any of us picked the Rams. I don't know. I think a couple of us picked the Rams.
I mean, it was a good game, but it was another one that, Darnold can't do the whole thing by himself, guys.
No, and Minnesota's only they've lost 4 games to 2 teams. And both those teams come back to back. Earlier in the year, it was the Lions and the Rams. And then this year, or at the end of the year, it was the Lions and then the Rams. Rams obviously playing with heart, considering everything that's going on with the LA area and the fires. It was played in Arizona too, so we didn't know how that would come into it because really neither team had home field advantage. Though
I heard Minnesota actually had a slight edge in crowd.
Yeah, I could see it. Minnesota has a pretty good fan base.
It was like 51% Minnesota, I think they said. So
really,
surprisingly.
Yeah, and I wonder how much just outside distraction kind of played into it, because there's been a lot of talk of O'Connell getting traded. A lot of teams apparently inquiring about it. You also have the whole Darnold contract situation coming up. Speaking of Matt's watching. He says
Hey.
Skull Vikings.
Till the day I die.
Yeah, and then he says, "Let's go Texans." So Matt, he says Texans. Yeah, no, it's the Vikings. It just seemed, I don't know. Darnold seemed kind of off.
They felt lackluster Monday night.
Mhm.
They
Some
didn't
of it
feel
felt like coaching too.
They didn't feel like a 14-win team.
Yeah, I think what we said last week, they lucked their way into this playoff run, and it was not. They just had an easy schedule, and then when they had to play a real team, they were just like, "Uh-oh," they got caught with their pants down.
I mean, to be fair, they've only lost to 2 teams this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, true, but
yeah, I don't think they lucked their way in. I think they did a good job. I think it's just last night.
I think I might be thinking the wrong bracket because it's been a while. Give me a second.
Yeah,
no, I think some of it was coaching, because like in that third quarter, you score right away. I mean, I wouldn't have gone for 2 there. You have enough time, just kick the extra point. And then they kind of just played it slow, It didn't feel like they were really rushing it where they should have. Because I think if they scored again in the third quarter, and I think they had it, it felt like momentum was shifting. The Rams, one whole drive was just them getting penalties on offense. It was like first and 31.
Yeah. I think it got all the way to like 2nd and 40 or so. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah, no, it was bad. And you felt like, okay, it's going to turn here. And then they just were kind of like running small runs or small passes. On one of it was when they went for it on the goal line, which Matt said, yeah, they played like poo. But when they went for it on the goal line, the plays they drew up was the receivers were all not over the ends. Like, they were all still on the field to play.
Weird play calling. I didn't feel like they wanted to win.
Yeah, and I do kind of think maybe it's just outside distraction this week. Like we said, there's a lot of teams apparently calling for O'Connell, and they're negotiating because he only has 1 year left. So that's flux. I feel like the Darnold situation contract-wise, because they fumbled Keenum before, and then McCarthy's still kind of hurt. So I think there's just a lot of outside distractions, and they kind of just maybe overlooked the Rams. I don't know.
So after looking at their record, I do want to clarify. I think the Vikings are a good team. They are a fantastic team. But from the teams that they played during the regular season, because they lost to the Lions twice and they lost to the Rams during the regular season, I think that with that, the teams that they did play, everybody else in the NFC, they were not good enough to push the Vikings to be ready for the playoff run, in my opinion. So I think that while they were able to just smoke people like the Falcons, the Bears, all of that, they were still kind of underprepared for the fact that when they go back against, the Rams or the Lions, they're going to get punched in the mouth hard because those teams are stacked.
Well, McVay's a good coach.
True.
Like, I don't know what he does, but this is like 2 years in a row where the Rams looked out of it by like week 6, and then they come in and they win a playoff game. Yeah.
To be fair, I think Matthew Stafford is an elite quarterback.
That too.
I think he is fantastic. So give him a half decent team around him, and he's going to be dangerous in a lot of situations. He's not unbeatable, but kid is damn good.
Well, and they got really good receivers too.
Yeah, they've got a good squad. I mean, ever since the year they went to the Super Bowl, when they basically cashed in everything to get as stacked a team as they could and made it happen, they've still got a lot of those great pieces around, and they've been picking up decent ones along the way to replace whoever leaves. I think the Rams are going to be in and out of the conversation for probably the next decade.
Yeah, when I look at the final 8 that we have in the NFL, only one kind of doesn't feel like it should be there.
I know, but the Eagles will be gone soon, so don't worry about it.
I was more talking about the Texans, but
if they make it past round 2, that is just magic, prayer dust, and happy goodness for Houston because I do not see them making it much farther.
Yeah, no, and we'll get to it because got to get to our picks. But yeah, no, Minnesota had a good year. A lot of people wrote them off anyways because they were playing Darnold. So I don't think it's any shame. They made it a lot further than a lot of people gave them
Now, what do you
hope
think
for.
happens to him next year?
I don't think he's with Minnesota.
Are we getting what is it? 4 more years, right? 4 more years of Donald right there. Yeah.
I don't know. The way O'Connell talked, and maybe it's because he's leaving. I don't know, but he talked like someone that's not going to be coaching Darnold next year, because he kept wishing him the best at wherever he's going to go. He hopes this can, help him progress wherever he goes. So who knows? Maybe he goes back to Minnesota and O'Connell's not there, but it just he talked like someone where they're not going to be paired. So I just don't think they'll be together. I don't know if McCarthy will be ready. I don't know if Rodgers will be there. I don't know if Russell Wilson will be there. Who knows?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an offseason of question marks, and it's going to be something very interesting to see happen.
Hmm. Well, let's get to picking. So we start Saturday, January 18th, 2:30 matchup on ESPN, ABC, and ESPN Plus is Kansas City hosting the Houston Texans. Oh, well, we got somebody saying, nope, he is gone. So Sandra thinks the Darnold train in Minnesota is over. And I kind of do too, just the way
I think he's gone from Minnesota, but I wouldn't be surprised if he picks up a starting job somewhere else.
Yeah, there's too many teams that need a starting quarterback that aren't going to be able to draft one of the two top quarterbacks.
He definitely outplayed a lot of starters.
Oh, yeah. He played really well, even in he's just not had a good situation. You look at the Jets, you look at Carolina. It's kind of like Baker, where even Baker in Carolina didn't look very good either. So,
I mean, just like Bryce Young.
Yeah, Bryce Young for a while didn't look good in Carolina. He's turned it around, and I'm happy for him because I felt bad for him. But all right, so David, Houston going to Kansas City. What do you think's happening?
I know what the smart money's on, but I have to go Houston because I refuse to ever pick Kansas City.
Hey, got to stick with your morals, Brendan.
I mean, I think Kansas City's going to win, but I don't want them to.
All right, Grayson.
Pretty much the same. I want to say Houston, but I know Kansas City's going to pull it out. So in the dream scenario, Houston wins, whole upset, and then they get knocked out in the next round. But realism tells me to go with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, there's Bobby. Bobby picked Houston. Bobby, what happened to Denver? You got to tell us in the comments.
I'll tell you what happened.
No, I'm taking Kansas City as well. Just coming off a bye, Andy Reid's always been really good. I think he's historically has just an excellent record off a bye. He's had plenty of time to get the team healthy, get the team ready to go. They've been able to scout both teams for 2 weeks at this point, so it didn't really matter. And I think they'll pull it off. Houston's, I mean, that was a pretty emotional game, taxing mentally, so I think they'll just kind of come up not as ready to go and lose it there.
So do you think it's going to be Andy Reid's last run at the Super Bowl if they win? Do you think he's going to retire after this?
No, I don't think so, because I think he's still young enough. I think he's 10 years younger than Belichick was. So I think he's got enough time, especially as long as Mahomes is there. I don't think he's going to leave.
Fair.
Oh, Bobby did. First drive was awesome. We just got outplayed. Buffalo was a better team than us. Okay, so
we tried to tell you that last week.
We tried to tell the Bronco fans when they were chanting, "We want Buffalo." You don't want Buffalo. All right, so we jump to the other side, NFC game, 6 p.m. on Fox. Detroit hosting Washington. David.
I'm not a huge fan of them either, but I think Detroit takes it. They want it too bad. This is everything that they've been going for. And the Commanders have taken a huge leap from where they were last year, but they're not quite there yet. I think they will definitely be a strong threat going forward, especially with Dan Quinn now. But they barely got out of Tampa alive. I don't see the Lions giving them as easy a game as Tampa did. I don't think it's evenly matched. I think the Lions outclass Commanders in almost every area. So they might have a slight edge in coaching because I do think Dan Quinn's fantastic as a coach, but that can only go so far. If they've got a better offense, defense, quarterback, receivers, on and on and on, I think Detroit probably puts it away pretty easily. That'll probably be the least competitive game this weekend.
Brendan, what about you?
Detroit will win. I think their offense is too high-powered. And their running back came back, so now they have Sonic and Knuckles. So
Yeah, I was going to say Montgomery came back, and one of their cornerbacks came back too. So they're getting healthy at the right time.
I did hear, though, Commanders just signed Shadow. So Sonic and Knuckles better watch out.
Grayson, what about you?
Yeah, give me the Lions. I think, there's only so long you can be a statistical anomaly and never have been to the Super Bowl. I think the statistics are finally on their side, so I think they are obviously going to pull it out. As was mentioned by everybody else, they're a far superior team in almost every way. I think the Commanders have the chance, at least put up a little bit of a fight, but I think at this point in the season for them, they gave it everything they had with the Tampa Bay game, and they squeaked a win out just because time was on their side. So I do not think that the Lions are going to take it easy on them. I think it's going to be pretty much a Buffalo Bronco situation where they might get a touchdown or two, but they are going to get whipped by the Lions.
Yeah, I got to pick Detroit as well. I think Washington can make it interesting, but I don't think it'll be close. And I think if Quinn plays as aggressively and doesn't convert on those like fourth downs or fourth and goals when they can just get points, it's going to get ugly. Just because Detroit is a team that can capitalize, especially they're getting healthy at the right time. Even with the injuries, they just show how deep they are at the positions because they really haven't seen a drop in quality anywhere. I mean, defense, we were like, man, they're not having any starters, and they're still playing lights out. Detroit wants it. We'll see how badly, but I think it's going to be an easier matchup, probably by 14 points, I would say, to send them to the conference championship, which takes us to Sunday, January 19th. The 1 p.m. game on NBC and Peacock is Philadelphia hosting the LA Rams. Brendan, what's your pick?
Philly.
You're going to pick Philly.
In LA, we can beat them again in Philadelphia.
All right. David.
I think it's going to be the Rams. They're playing much better. Eagles played very sloppy. They had some injuries that they didn't need to get. And I think the Rams are in a better place and a better streak. I think they're going to capitalize on all that and put Philly away at home.
Grayson.
Yeah, give me the Rams too. I think while the talent is on the Phillies or on the Eagles, but I think as Brendan brought out, the coaching scheme's kind of just, you're not sure of what's going on, who's doing what, and who's really trying to, be the centerpiece of the team. So for that reason, I think with LA being more stable in that front, they are definitely going to have that edge on Philly, and I think that's just going to give them the win ultimately. I think it'll be a closer game than some of the other ones this week, but I think at the end of the day, I think they don't have what it takes to go finish this up, so I think they'll be knocked out in this round, and LA will progress.
Yeah, and I think LA is also playing for their community. We've seen it before with teams like New Orleans and stuff like that, the Giants and stuff when bad things happen. So they got a lot to play for off the field as well. And McVay is such a good coach. Like, I can't give him enough props. I mean, he's taken teams that looked like rebuilding teams, and they've gone far in the playoffs. And that offense and that defense can be really good. And I don't know. I just with Sirianni and what he's been doing lately, it's just hard to pick the Eagles. I'm not saying the Eagles can't win, but since we have to pick one, I'll take the Rams. It looks like LA Rams to give the fans something to take their minds off what's going on with all the sadness going on with losing everything in the fires. Yeah, it's pretty terrible what's going on down there. And then the Sunday night 4:30 game, I guess kind of Sunday midday on CBS and Paramount Plus is Buffalo hosting Baltimore Ravens. I mean, probably the matchup everyone's looking forward to. Two high-powered teams. I feel super torn because Lamar is obviously Louisville, but Josh Allen's from University of Wyoming. David, I'll let you kick this one off.
Like I said before, I can't even begin to tell you who's going to win this one. If I got to pick who I want it to be, probably the Ravens. I think, Lamar's gotten that MVP. They've gotten so close so many times. I think this may finally be their year to seal it and put it away. So I'm going to go Ravens, but I do think it will be the best game of the weekend. Definitely championship quality game, and I'm excited to see it. I think it's going to be fantastic, and I can't really be upset whichever way it goes. I just hope whoever wins is ready to utterly destroy Kansas City if it comes down to that.
One of these two teams must be our savior.
Which, to be fair, I think they both stand a very good chance of taking them down if Houston doesn't. I think they're both better teams than Kansas City.
I mean, we've already seen Buffalo embarrass Kansas City, so
and I think the Ravens, the way the Ravens have been playing now, actually playing up to their potential, I think they could easily dismantle the Chiefs as well. So I am a firm fan of whichever team wins this game.
Brendan, who you taking?
Baltimore. I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be a good game. It'll be fun to watch. But I also think it'd be kind of fun if roles were reversed this year, and Ravens were 1 seed and Chiefs were 1-3 last year, and if the roles were reversed this year, 3-1, and Ravens go in and beat them in Kansas City.
Which definitely could happen. Grayson.
For the sticks and gigs of it, give me Buffalo. I really do want to see Josh Allen just go all the way again. I kind of want to see him embarrass the Chiefs, and I kind of want to see that be the way they get to the Super Bowl this year. Because I think, in all honesty, I think the Bills are a better team this year than the Chiefs, and I think with that, they've done the work. They've been in the playoffs for the last 5 years because of this team and the quarterback that they have on it. So I think at some point that's got to pay off or something. And I think if anybody is going to knock out the team of these two teams to at least, be fun to watch because they've been knocked out by the Chiefs before in the playoffs would be the Bills. So just give me the Bills.
Oh, man. This is one I'm so torn on because obviously Lamar's Louisville.
Obviously, you just need to go Bills to make it half and half.
I would love to see Josh Allen win it all. It'd be great. I do think it'll be Baltimore though. Kind of feels like their year, especially with Derrick Henry.
I feel like none of us are going to be upset with whoever wins.
Yeah,
I think they're both solid choices.
I think they're both solid choices. I think we're going to get an excellent game. I am disappointed it's not the conference championship because I think these are the two best remaining AFC teams. So I'm bummed they're playing now. But, I mean, and that could always work against them. They could have a really hard-fought, really taxing game and then go just, drop the ball to Kansas City. So it's kind of negative in two ways. But I think for now I'm taking Baltimore. Just kind of – they look like they're having fun. Lamar isn't as stressed. He doesn't have to be Lamar all the time because they have Derrick Henry, who's just looking. Yeah, he's making players look silly. Watching that Pittsburgh game, he was just casually running around. It looked like a backyard, like adults versus kids type of deal when he was on the field. But yeah, that's our picks, I guess. Any
I will
pop
say
culture
this.
news?
I think if it came down to the last game of the season and Derrick Henry was about to set a record, the Ravens would have played him.
See, Brendan's okay because he's like, the more you don't pick the Eagles, the more they win. So he's like, keep picking against them.
Could be. But Brendan, if the Eagles played the Ravens this weekend, would you think the Eagles are going to win?
Yes.
Is there any team they'd go against that you'd be worried the Eagles are going to lose?
The Lions.
So the Lions scare you more than the Chiefs or anybody like that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was
Yeah,
the Bucks. Bucks are out now, so
The Bucks were a very interesting team this year. Like, they weren't the best, but I think they do match up really well against the Eagles. I could have seen it.
well, they were the only team to have beaten both the Eagles and the Lions. So
Yeah, the Bucks always seem to match up well against NFC East teams in particular. Stylistically, they've been very similar the past decade or so.
They fit the Florida vibe very well. It's crazy, it's wild, and you don't know what you're going to get until the last second.
Until the game.
Down.
Yeah. Pop culture wise, it's January. Not much. Goosebumps started. That's about it.
Yeah, well, just speaking of Goosebumps, stay tuned this week. Our review of the first episode will be going live. So just keep your eyes out, as well as next Monday we will be talking Wolfman. I don't think there's been other pop culture news that we need to know.
Are we missing
at some
out,
point?
Are we forgetting about the fact that Efaba wants to be Storm? She's making that very
Oh, yeah,
public.
yeah.
Oh, I heard about that. I mean, they could do worse.
It could, yeah. I agree.
I think it's going to depend on what age they're deciding to make the X-Men and what part of the story they're jumping into.
Well, honestly,
I think it depends on who they get for T'Challa too, because that's been another thing is they're recasting.
So
how old is that?
I've actually,
Efaba?
I think she's about the same age as Ariana Grande, so I would say early 30s, maybe.
Last minute. I asked because we have the
But while you look that up, I did hear that. I heard that they are trying to recast T'Challa, and they've approached a lot of prominent, bigger name African American male actors, and a lot of people are very hesitant to take the role because of how iconic it was with Chadwick, that they almost don't want to take it because of him. So there's a lot of people that have already turned it down or just not been interested, which I think is very unique, but especially since Chadwick himself, before he died, insisted that the role be recast because he felt that, T'Challa was bigger than him. I mean, Superman's been recast, Spider-Man's been, I don't think there's anything wrong. Yeah, Batman has been iconic in every iteration. Like, I get what they're saying, but I think it'll set a bad precedent if we don't get somebody in there soon.
I think honestly, if they wait until after either the Doomsday, plot thread and try to do a recast, that'd be the smartest course for sure.
Everything gets reset, and it's just another universe as T'Challa that comes into this one.
Yeah,
I'd be fine with that. That would have been okay if they didn't want to do the traditional recast for the second movie. I get giving it some time with the second one, especially since it was the same cast and everything that had worked with him, and the death happened right before I think they started. So I guess I get that, but let's move on. And I guess the whole storyline, with him having that son and everything, probably isn't going to go anywhere.
Yeah, T'Challa Jr.
I think there was a lot more T'Challa because I think he was going to become one of the main Avenger leaders was the plan. And I think a lot of the T'Challa storylines kind of got scrapped with him passing, and then with Black Panther 2 not being nearly as successful as what they thought it might have been.
To your point, David, I think you could kind of feel that gigantic, they tried to whip that, Titanic-sized ship around as soon as he died. And you can kind of feel that in the way they made movies going forward from that.
Yeah.
But Cynthia Erivo is 38, so I think she might be a little bit on the older side, especially if they're trying to make, X-Men a franchise for the next 10 to 15 years.
I will say, though, Storm is supposed to be older than the core X-Men of like Jean Grey, Cyclops, and them, because she's a teacher when they come into the school.
Fair.
So, and she did a really good job. I mean, I think she played Elphaba as like a college student pretty well, like age-wise. I bought it. I mean, she can pass as like mid-20s, whatever.
Fair enough. I have not seen Wicked, or I don't think I've seen any of her other stuff, so I could not attest to any of her acting ability. So heck, if it works, it works. But
I mean, Halle Berry was, I think, similarly that age when she came into it, correct?
I think you're right. Yeah.
Like early 30s, maybe mid 30s.
I mean, yeah, and look at Hugh Jackman. They're probably going to make him just do it forever at this point. I had heard that they're going to have Henry Cavill come back.
I heard he's going to be in the next movie.
Yeah, but I know they're just going to try to have their cake and eat it too, because as long as you can have Hugh Jackman, that's going to bring you money.
I mean, I could see Hugh sticking around until at least the end of Secret Wars.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe even like another Deadpool somewhere in there with them together kind of thing. I mean,
Or
as much money as it,
Hulk versus Wolverine.
yeah, it made so much money. Why wouldn't you do it? Why not a Battle Worlds that's nothing but Hulk versus Wolverine just for the hell of it?
And
Well, I did hear
back
now
every
that
time
they're
they come
trying to
to
make World War Hulk during the Battle World phase, so it will.
I've been
it
saying
can
that for
happen in Battle
years,
World.
Keegan.
I know. It's not.
I think they might have sorted out the rights issue though, that they can do a solo one now.
Okay.
I don't know, but I think, because I know that's what was stopping it before, but now with Red Hulk coming into it, and I've heard a rumor that even Liv Tyler is going to end up being a Hulk by the end of the movie.
Well, isn't there like Robins rumors going around right now that Tim Blake Nelson's supposed to play the leader in this?
No, that's not a rumor.
Okay.
That's confirmed. He's coming
Yeah.
back from the Hulk movie. That he's the
All right.
leader. Yeah,
Dude, I'm a little excited. A little excited.
I mean, yeah, I think it'll be good. Again, I did hear that Wolverine is in this, Henry Cavill.
Yeah, I heard he's going to be in it. I heard they're going to see the Spider-Man's back in it. As far as the three, I feel like they're just throwing everybody in there to make lots of money, which I'm fine
I mean,
with,
for
it'll be
Secret
fun to
Wars,
watch.
that's what I would do.
Yeah.
I would do Battle World movies just so out of. I mean, if it's not going to mean anything moving forward, now's the time to get silly with it. Just do
Right.
crazy shit.
Well, what I've
they
heard too
need
is that they're bringing
some,
back Miles Teller's Mr. Fantastic to be the maker.
So I did hear, again, rumors. When we see this Fantastic Four, this is the Fantastic Four that's been established for a long time in their universe. That's going to be like a multiverse thing. And the main Reed that we see, Pedro, is going to be part of a council of Reeds, and you will see a bunch of the previous Reeds and some new ones.
Dude.
And that all of it will culminate in the end of the movie to Dr. Doom there stealing the multiverse, like traveling equipment. And that's how he comes to where things are set up to start Doomsday.
David, you can't do this to my heart if that does not happen.
That's the strongest. I mean, a lot of sources have said it, but we'll see. You know, these things flip.
Yeah.
But right now, they're going to say that this movie will mainly be like Galactus is the bad guy. It'll show you why Dr. Doom hates Reed, show their rivalry and everything. But the Fantastic Four is very established. They've already got their technology. They've been, they're famous. They've had the powers. And at the end of the movie, after they've kind of defeated Galactus, Dr. Doom's going to take the multiverse traveling stuff that Reed has invented and use it to escape to another place for his own nefarious reasons. Some say that it's going to be specifically to take on Kang to get rid of him, which we've heard maybe the opening of Doomsday is getting rid of Kang. But him escaping will be why the Fantastic Four goes after him and ends up involved with all the multiverse stuff.
Let's go.
Grayson, do some fact checking and see who's confirmed. Because I think I just saw Tom Hiddleston's back for the next two as well as Loki. We know Chris Evans is back, right?
I mean, I don't know if there's anybody officially confirmed except Robert Downey Jr.
No,
But we know Chris Evans is there.
Yeah.
We don't know his what, but he's there.
Yeah.
We know.
Magneto.
I mean, I think everybody will be there. There's no reason for anyone not to be. I've heard even Black Widow is going to be back.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think ScarJo comes back?
Yeah. I think this is our last see everybody kind of movie. because if they
I
can
think
find a way
Toby
to put
comes
him
back
in-
too. Yeah.
Oh no, we're going to see all this. But it made way too much money not to use all three of them.
What about William Defoe? Do you think we see his Goblin?
Maybe, but I'm way more interested in the new Norman that we're going to see in Thunderbolts.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard that's who
Go ahead, Keegan.
gets the. Well, I just heard that's one of the rumors is Norman is why there's that little asterisk at the end because it's gonna be like him
So
kind of controlling everything from the shadows.
So what I've heard, Val, who is playing, Madam Hydra, Val putting them together and everything, she's in charge of the Thunderbolts through the whole movie and everything, but she intends for them to die to Sentry, and him being, because he's like the bad guy or whatever, they're all supposed to die, and it builds up Sentry to be like the ultimate weapon or whatever. She's gonna fail in whatever it is she was supposed to do, so she goes to her boss, who is Norman Osborn, and he fucking caps her. Like, she failed him, he kills her, and turns over the Thunderbolts to the new boss, who is going to be what's her name? What was the niece? Sharon Carter.
Oh, Sharon Carter, yeah.
Because remember at the end of Captain America and Falcon in the series, she was kind of shady, talking to like somebody that she was working like black market type stuff with. So she's also working for Norman. Norman has been behind the scenes. He doesn't have Oscorp because he's been more of a behind the scenes kind of guy. So he turns over the Thunderbolts to her. She's their new like head manager, handler, or whatever. That brings her back into it and makes sense of that in credit stuff. And we see him reaching out to work with Kingpin, building up the bad behind the scenes stuff of New York, which is going to tie into Daredevil series happening and everything, and eventually sets him up to have not only Kingpin, but the new Green Goblin also against Spider-Man later on. And supposedly Norman Osborn is played by Matthew McConaughey.
All right.
And honestly, like him as like a genius psychopath, 100% see it. I think he'll pull it off really well, and I think he could be just as scary as Defoe. He's got that same kind of feeling that I feel like he could be very menacing if they do it the right way.
If he plays the Goblin like he did in True Detective, like that kind of just weird, like standoffish, socially exiled type of dude, 1000%.
Yeah. But the one that could be like turn on that kind of like weird charm when he wants to, like kind of that oozy salesman kind of feel.
Absolutely, 100%.
Did you ever see Mud?
Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey in Mud. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I know people have memes. We all, everybody makes fun of him, but Matthew McConaughey is a hell of an actor. So
100%. Like the later part of his career, 100%.
So, and I think he would love the chance to be a major villain. And I think I'd love to see his Goblin versus Tom Holland Spider-Man.
Yeah. Sorry to distract real quick again. Everything that I've found is already stuff that we know and have known for a long time for confirmations. So nothing
nothing major.
It's just rumor. Sorry, but sorry to distract. Anyway.
No, you're good. I think that's about it for pop culture. Like we said,
actually, I do have one more thing. Disney has announced that they're in talks with John Barenthal to bring back Punisher, or at least there is talks.
Okay. So Thunderbolts supposedly big rumors again. A lot of people are going to die. The only people left on the team at the end of the movie supposedly are going to be Winter Soldier and Florence Pugh's character. What was her name again?
I don't remember. I'll look it up though.
Yelena. Yeah. So those two and Red Guardian possibly. David Harbour. Everybody else dies during the mission, so they're kind of building the Thunderbolts up. And supposedly the end credit scene is going to be Winter Soldier and Yelena meeting with the Punisher.
Bro. If they actually do this, I think Marvel will finally be back to its roots and just doing the right things.
Because Punisher, he's already confirmed that he is in Daredevil.
Yeah.
So that's going to happen. So it makes sense. That's how they bring him into the movies, is he'd be perfect for the Thunderbolts. Like that kind of like outside the law, getting stuff done. Like, I think that'd be great. But speaking of Daredevil, the only big rumor I've heard there, supposedly, and take this with a big grain of salt because this may just be somebody wishing this, but supposedly there's going to be about a 10-15 minute scene or like thing happening that shows Matt being Matt Murdock, being a lawyer who is defending somebody with powers. They're not going to say like his name or anything. They're just, the defendant was, whatever. And he's going to get him off. And you're going to find out at the end of the case or whatever that the guy's name he was defending is Johnny Blaze. And supposedly the casting for that is Keanu Reeves.
But I'm not necessarily as excited about the Keanu Reeves part, but it is still cool. But if that's actually what gets announced that way, my guy, that'll be so sweet.
Yeah. And I don't know if it'll be that he has his powers yet. It might just be that he's just a regular stuntman at this point or something. Maybe that's how they'll do it. So it's not a bit like he's not Ghost Rider yet, which I'd be fine with. But I think that'd be really cool. And I do know they've been talking to Keanu about being in the MCU. I don't know if he's a good Ghost Rider or not. I mean, but he did Shadow well. Maybe Edgy Boy is just where he's going.
And he's one that wants maybe a little retribution or just a retake at the comic book genre, because he did Constantine. A lot of people actually kind of like it. It's not very comic accurate, but it's actually kind of a cult movie at this point.
It wasn't bad because of the acting. I think all the actors in that, even Shia LaBeouf, I think they did fantastic. They had a good concept. I would have liked to have given them another movie.
Yeah. Which there's been rumors for a while now that they want to give him another movie. Now with the shake up with DC, I don't know if that would happen, but I think I'd be up for it.
I'd still go see it. Yeah.
I mean, if they were going to recast anybody for Constantine, I could totally see Anthony Starr doing a really, really good Constantine. If anything, I mean,
after the intensity that he brought to Homelander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like if you haven't seen any of his other stuff, some of his other like acting projects and like the TV shows he's done, he's able to play that kind of character that he would be really good as Constantine.
Like I could believe that he kind of hates everybody, but he wants to save us from demons. I could see it.
Absolutely.
I thought it was really interesting that in Sandman, Constantine was played by a woman. That they didn't even try to do the standard one. That's in the DC universe. It's supposed to be the Constantine that's in DC.
Really?
Yeah, Sandman is a DC universe, and in the comic, there's more like heroes actually in it in like small parts. But that Constantine is the same one that's in the DC universe Constantine. But I love her, Jenna. What's her name? But Jenna Coleman. She was a companion on Doctor Who for a couple years. I thought she's great. She's gorgeous. I thought she did a really good job. But I think it's interesting that they took it that way instead of even trying to compete with like an iconic Constantine. I think.
And maybe it's because they were going to bring back Keanu and they're like, oh, let's not muddle it and bring another actor in.
Either that, or I don't think they were directly related to the DC studios or anything because Netflix did it and all that. So I think they were like, if we make it just different enough that they can't say we're taking the character, we can get away with it.
Yeah. Kind of in name only. Speaking of kind of rumored or maybe announced projects, David, do you want to talk about maybe Oz getting a little bit bigger?
Yeah, so I mean, as we've seen, Wicked has been a huge phenomenon, just as it was when the Broadway show came out. The movie came out, they did a great job, knocked it out of the park. So hype is at an all-time high. They know the next movie is coming out next November, and they're already talking about ways to expand it to give us more movies in the same kind of Wicked verse. They haven't said if it's going to be possibly the other books, which God, I hope not, because they're terrible. But one of the rumored ones is possibly a spinoff about Galinda and her life, maybe before Wicked, or maybe something that happens in between that we don't see on screen or whatever. And another chance to bring Ariana Grande back in, I'm sure. Big star power there. So that's definitely something I think worth keeping an eye on to see where it goes. I would not be surprised if we get more movies in the same world, same universe and everything. I would be totally cool if they wanted to do something like that and make an original musical, but bring back the same people who made the Wicked musical and just make another one. It'd be really funny if that looped around eventually for them to do a Broadway adaptation of the movie, kind of the way that it's come around. So that would be very interesting. Or maybe even, this would be more difficult, maybe even redoing the Wizard of Oz in the Wicked universe. with new songs and stuff, but having Dorothy's story from that side point, and you could see the characters again from the other viewpoint. I think that might be kind of interesting. But yeah,
See, I think that's where they're going with part 2. I think we're going to get some
you think we're
Wizard
going to
of
see more
Oz.
Dorothy? I think
Yeah.
they'd be dumb not to, in my opinion. If they're going to cast it and have them, you might as well show some bits that people are familiar with. Because to be honest with you, all the best songs and everything are in part 1. So they need something to kick up part 2, I think, a little more. It definitely gets darker, a lot more emotional beats and stuff. I think that'd be really
As
cool.
long as we don't get too dark, just don't go
Right.
off the book.
And I think another interesting world that we are going to possibly see some spinoffs is Squid Game. I think, it was a huge hit when it came out, surprisingly. And then season 2, they weren't sure, but the hype is there. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, but season 2 was extremely good. It picked up things really well from where the first season left off, and the numbers it's doing and how much there is. I don't think they're going to let it go with the next season this year. I think they're going to want to find a way to keep that going with spinoffs. And I've already heard they're talking about maybe doing like prequels to back like the first Squid Game or previous ones that somebody's won, things like that. Or potentially even it moves on and there's in America, like USA based Squid Game, something like that. So I think that'll be really interesting, but I think they're going to really have to toe the line between overkill and making it good. Because I think it'd be really easy to squeeze this too hard.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing. Everyone's really excited for more, but you always kind of run where Marvel even ran into it, where they just did too much. And I think that's
gotta be. You got to keep the quality. Like we want more, but only if it's just as good.
Yeah, I think it's a dangerous line to walk, kind of like the Purge movies, where when it's once in a while, interesting. When it's one every single year for 6 years in a row, way too many.
Just like Saw
too, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, like Stranger Things is a great example. I love Stranger Things. I've loved where they've gone with it. I think ending it with this next season is a perfect idea. It's a good done. Move on. I do think they're going to do more in that world, like spinoffs and stuff. But I think it's fine to end the core series at like 5 seasons. We've told that story.
Well, plus those kids don't even look like they're teenagers anymore. They're all adults. There's no way they can do enough CGI to de-age
Those
them.
kids look older than us at this point. So.
But I mean, like to your point too, I forget who said it. I think it was John Carpenter or one of the just master horror directors was like, the more you show the monster, the less mystique there is. And I feel like with shows, universes, all of that sort of media that we consume, the more that we visit those worlds, the more like they try to like kind of expose it without exposing that mystery. It just shows it too much. You kind of have to let there be, a marination, so to speak, of just letting those like longer seasons or like those little longer breaks in between kind of grow to create that want and not show too much of your show's quote unquote monster or your content's just like, I guess is the word I'm looking for, but
the Jaws effect. Yeah.
Like you got to hit that line of not doing it too quickly, but also not making it wait so long that people don't care anymore.
Exactly.
It's definitely a tightrope.
I think with stuff like Invincible as a good example, I think when you start kind of waiting 3 years to release your next season, that's kind of the line. You have to at least make it, maybe 18 months. That's pretty much where audiences start kind of losing care about anything.
I think shows like The Boys has been doing it great, where it's like once a year. You wait about a year to maybe a year and a half at the very most, and you've got it. And then they might even do like a spinoff series in the meantime that doesn't relate too closely to the original,
Yeah. To your point, I think honestly they use those spinoff series to let them kind of cook a season a little bit longer when they know they need it.
And
so
I think
they're sprinkling that in just to kind of give them that little bit of just a buffer to be like, here's this, leave us alone while we do this to make this as good as possible.
Like here, have some content, remember that we exist, be hyped, but give us a couple more months.
Yeah, let us get
Marvel should be doing.
But see, exactly. That's what Marvel needs to be using the Disney Plus series for.
Exactly.
Do like a movie, give us a nice series, couple months off, another movie, then kind of alternate. Keep it spicy without overkilling. Because I mean, people like us, we're probably going to watch everything, but that's not going to be the general audience.
Exactly.
I think there's a lot of things with Marvel that have happened where now the general audience is like, who haven't watched this series are going to be like, what's going on? Like, who are these people?
Which I get it because that's how comics are. But
I mean,
but to an extent, you gotta play to your audience where the money is.
to your guys' point, sorry, I'm like really excited about this, but to your guys' point, I think they kind of just have to treat, you know, like the big names in their comic book stories, like the X-Men, the Avengers, like the top heroes of their lines that have just been top for the longest time. Those are the movie events that you just go to see no matter what. The Spider-Mans, the Iron Mans, you know, the X-Men movies, those are what you go see. But you can still sprinkle in those loved characters. I think we've even talked about this before, but sprinkle in those loved characters like Doctor Strange or even some of the lower tier heroes with their own TV shows to kind of build up, you know, villains in the universe or give us, you know, those quality arcs that do take time to kind of cook in between those gigantic events that movies should be.
Like Daredevil's a perfect example of a hero that deserves his own series, that it's okay that he doesn't have a movie.
Exactly.
I'm fine. Give me 10, 12 great episodes of his like darker story, and then have him as like the sidekick in a Spider-Man movie, you know, have a team up or something like that. 100%. That's what I want.
Exactly. And I mean, even like some of the major heroes too, like Spider-Man, have him go through, you know, the Venom arc in an actual storyline, not just a 2-hour movie, a storyline where you kind of delve into the character of Spider-Man and just that actual journey. Because every single Venom story we've gotten in media, except for a couple of the video games, it's not been a good Venom story. That's just an entire side point. But you could use those TV shows to kind of, if Sony plays along, this is all obviously hypothetical, but if they were to let that happen, you could develop that into probably one of the best TV segments of a Spider-Man story of all time.
Like what I'm hoping they do now that the Venomverse is officially dead and everything, I hope in Secret Wars we're going to get Tom Holland getting the black suit like he does in the comics through all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then let that be just a regular thing for like 2 movies at least.
That'd be good.
Don't make it bad. Just it's a dope suit. There's nothing wrong with it. You know, maybe towards the end of that second movie, there's a little like, and then by the end of the third one, we go into Venom. But let it build. Let there be some history with it, and let it be like, oh shit, you know, like we know it's coming, but it has so much time to marinate and so many other stories in the meantime as that's kind of growing in the background. The same thing if they ever tried to do like the Clone Saga or something like that.
Yeah, dude, if they could build it up to where, like, you know, each story you see him in, he gets a little bit more, you know, aggressive, a little bit more mean, a little bit, you know,
doesn't
like
just
symbiotes
go
taking
dancing at the jazz club in dark clothes.
If they do an homage to that, I would die a happy man. I'll be honest with you.
Check so we're gonna get into Secret Wars. Just get black suit, Toby.
Secret Wars has just like a 10-minute scene of Tobey Maguire teaching Tom Holland how to do the dance.
Yeah, all the Spider-Men get the black suit, and we just see all of them like just doing the dance.
I'd be there for it. Whatever.
It doesn't even need to be in the foreground. It could just be in the background. You just see the 3 Spider-Man group together.
Right.
Just like Toby doing it, and they're like trying, and he's like, no, they're like correcting.
You just see it like in the background as they like walk by something. You're just like, wait a minute, go back.
Like as they're all split up into their separate lands, like the Spider-Man have like different classes. There's like, you know, the regular Spider-Man and the emo Spider-Man. It just shows them with those get-ups and stuff like that. With Toby with the hair combed down like that and all that stuff. I think that'd be hilarious. Yeah, we don't talk to those guys. Those guys are a little weird. Because if everyone's in the golf corner, they're just sitting there.
I mean, in the multiverse, there's got to be a Spider-Man that became emo Toby and just stayed that way.
Right. One can hope.
Hey, you never know. Brendan, what are you doing this week? And any fun plans for all the playoff games?
Probably not the playoff games. I'm gonna start building some end tables for around the house, and I'm on call, so I might have to work.
Grayson, what about you?
Nothing really. I was not able to get Nosferatu video up, but should be able to get that up this weekend and you know, talk about some gothic horror goodness. So,
David, what about you? Any abnormal voyages we should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, definitely working on editing some stuff so that we should be back on track pretty soon. just kind of taking off for probably the rest of this month just to get a bunch of content ready to go all at once. And Keegan has disappeared. Oh, there he is. Okay. But yeah, just getting a lot of content ready, some really awesome stuff coming up. And beyond that, just going to be watching all those awesome games this weekend. I mean, this is usually the best weekend of football. So I'm excited for that. And, watching more Goosebumps, getting ready for our retrospectives that start off pretty soon.
Yeah, definitely keep an eye out on the channel this week. Episode 1 of Goosebumps we will be releasing Thursday or Friday. Probably will go live. So just keep an eye out for that. As I said as well, pop culture. We'll be talking Wolfman on Monday. I saw a more recent trailer and I'm like, okay, it's a little bit different Wolfman, but I'm okay. We'll see how it goes. Like,
it's looking less like traditional Wolfman, but it's looking like a decent movie, maybe.
Like a decent horror movie. Yeah.
I think
So
go ahead, Keegan.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say I've grown more excited for it. I was really leery when we saw the Halloween Horror Nights version of Wolfman. But some of the scenes we've seen now, I'm like, okay, it fits the movie vibe that they're going.
It just doesn't seem to have anything to do with Wolfman.
100%. Right. I will say, I think with the way they're taking it, while the initial looks were they worried me too. I thought it was going to be bad, but I think with the more extended kind of looks and them giving us more of like the vibe of the movie with these trailers, I think I'm definitely on board with it. I think I see the vision of where he's wanting to go with it.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. I think we got some decent pop culture episodes coming up, so I'm excited where 2025 takes us. I think it'll be better than where 2024 took us, at least. So I'm excited for the next few months, at least. And yeah, stay tuned.
Here's the real question.
Okay,
Keegan, have you seen Kraven the Hunter yet?
I've seen it twice, David.
He was like, "It's so good, I got to see it again."
No, I haven't. I haven't seen it. I haven't been to the theaters much.
I don't even think it's in theaters anymore. Like, I don't think you can go see it there. I saw it on Amazon earlier today that I could rent it, so I don't know.
I'll probably watch it once I can watch it from home. I just haven't really had the time to go out to a movie. When I have, we did Sonic, so obviously I went and saw Sonic. I'm gonna go watch Wolfman. It's just been kind of a busy time, but I do plan at least on watching it once.
I just know you were excited about it, so
I was legit excited when I first saw the trailer. Like,
I want a full review from you when you see it.
I'll just make like a really theatrical like type of video of me like sitting down, like just my reactions.
Look,
however you want to do it, man.
Keegan, I think you should just get a turtleneck sweater, circle glasses, and be just like super artsy about it. Be like, cinema, what does it mean? I'll tell you what it means to me. Kraven the Hunter. And just treat it super seriously the entire time.
But he has to start it with like reading a big book, and then he goes, "Oh, hello, I didn't see you there."
Welcome to Culz Paranormal. I'm Keegan.
I'll just be reading like a really fancy looking book, like a fire's in the background. Have like a nice glass of wine.
Somehow you have one of those 18th or 19th century robes that are just nothing but velvet, being like, oh, a smoking jacket, I guess is what I'm looking for.
Today, Kravenicus the Hunter.
What does Russia, hunting, and Aaron Taylor Johnson have in common? Tonight, we find out.
In a way, aren't we all hunters?
Well, and speaking of future deep dives, one I forgot to mention, kind of hype up. Next month, we are going to be doing the original Wizard of Oz as a deep dive.
Towards the Wicked Part 2.
Yeah, we're going to try to start doing some of these Wizard of Oz movies to lead up to Wicked Part 2. So where better to start than the 1939 classic? Right.
And I believe we're going to talk about the original book in that same episode, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct. And our book club starts the 3rd. It'll be live, so join us live. We're doing the Midnight Library. So we got a ton. Just stay tuned. We will be doing a ton. David is doing a ton on his channel. Grayson's going to be doing some movie reviews. Brendan, I'm sure we'll get back to doing some of his shows, craft shows and stuff like that. So it'll be a busy 2025. Thank you guys for joining us again. And here's to hopefully a good week of football. Let us know in the comments below who you're picking for the upset of the week. Tell us in the comments below.